Wouldn't it be nice to have several thought leaders in your industry know and love your brand? Start a podcast. Invite your industry's thought leaders to be guests on your show and start reaping the benefits of having a network full of industry influencers. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I am your host for today's episode, Nikki Ivy of Sweetfish Media. I've got with me today Charles Orlando, who is Vice President of Marketing at Humanity. Charles, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Good. I'm glad. So we're going to be digging into something that I'm super interested in. We're going to be talking about how to take your marketing from smaller business size into catering to enterprise, and some ideas on strategy and how that affects the new tactics that folks can be using in your experience with that. But before we get into all of that, Charles, I'd love you to give us just a little bit of background on yourself and what you and the folks at Humanity have been up to these days.
Sure. 10 seconds on me. I'm a 25-year high-tech marketing and PR vet specializing in cloud and SaaS. If I don't date myself here, before SaaS was a thing, when it was still an ASP, an application service provider. So I've landed over here at Humanity just under a year ago with a purpose of really taking the organization to the next level, really around transitioning, as you mentioned, from the SMB side of the business to enterprise, which is really a completely different approach. It's been a fantastic journey thus far. We've reinvented ourselves in just a short amount of time that I've been here from a branding, value proposition, messaging, and positioning standpoint. And now we're getting ready to take that out to demand gen in an intelligent way.
I love it. So with that change, first I'd like to hear just a little bit of what some of the marquee differences are that you've encountered that maybe you didn't anticipate in transitioning from the SMB into enterprise, and then how that's affected your marketing strategy and the new tactics that you've had to implement.
Sure. Well, it's always different for each market. So just some background on this market. Humanity is a cloud-based employee scheduling platform. It accelerates the schedule creation process for shift-based workers and organizations by up to about 80%. And you can use that as a software as a service and deploy it in the cloud, or you can integrate it with your human capital management or workforce management solution seamlessly. And that's where we start talking about both sides of the business, the SMB side and the enterprise side. SMBs typically really want to talk about, does it do what I need to do at its bare bones, and how much is it going to cost me? Enterprises take things a little bit more strategically. Not that smaller organizations aren't strategic, but when you start talking about thousands of employees that will be impacted by a solution, it's a different evaluation process. And it's a larger difference from a subscription-based service standpoint, where you're talking about several $100s a month potentially to many thousands of dollars a month, up to $1 million a year, depending on how many employees you're deploying this for. So the approach is very different. I'd gone through this once before. If you back me up to 1998, 99, so you are going to make me date myself, but I landed over at WebEx before they were even WebEx, when they were still known as ActiveTouch. And we were faced with the same challenge. We were going after the SMB side of the world with small with small either organizations inside larger companies or small organizations as they sit, just smaller companies as a whole. When you start going after the training groups inside Cisco, as an example, it's a much different sales approach than it is going after Oracle as a company.
Sure.
With that comes a change in positioning, messaging, value prop, and getting away from feature-based and price-based selling and really talking about value-driven. It's a value-driven approach and a solution sell that's based on how you integrate into their business as a whole, their day-to-day operations. When you have a software solution that's going to be used on a constant basis and not used once a month, you have to take a different approach as to how you're selling and how you're educating on your value.
I love it. And what you're saying, I mean, having had some experience in sales, I think that it's completely accurate as far as what that shift looks like going from SMB to enterprise. But I don't often hear what that looks like from the marketing side of things. So talk a little bit about how you leverage enterprise partnerships and customers to market what you guys are doing.
Well, so partnerships are definitely a part of what we do. Integration and or channel sales is an integral part. We are a Workday approved solution, which we just gained that notoriety about a month ago. That integration has been in the works for 9 or so months, 10 months. So that we're very proud of. But also on the channel side, we have a smaller channel organizations that specialize sometimes in quick service food or in delivery or in call center contracting that outsource our solution to their constituents and their customers as well. So it's definitely a solid approach, but it doesn't lead to the bigger fish that we want to land when you start looking at organizations that we've ended up signing up, people like Lifetime Fitness and Orange Theory and Chick-fil-A and HBO. And these are organizations that are real company beyond just channel marketing strategy. They may take some recommendations from a systems integrator or from one of their colleagues, but at the end of it, you're going to end up reaching them on a very direct basis. And there's a variety of targets within those organizations that we try to reach, educate, and bring into the fold. And thus far, it's been a lot of fun and very successful in my short little 10-month tenure.
Good. Listen, that kind of brings me to the next thing I wanted to ask you about. When you're making that transition from SMB to enterprise or even from sort of a direct-to-consumer type model, how does the role of social media change in that transition?
Dramatically. On the enterprise side, I think social media is important, but it has a different purpose. So firstly, I think there's a common fallacy that social is just this magic bullet and allows people to reach their targets or their prospects or constituents very easily and simply. And that's not the case. What we try to do with social media is not pitch our wares, because the truth is no one cares about your product. What they care about is how they feel or what they gain by using a solution like yours. Mm-hmm. So we end up educating our followers and our fans and our prospects and customers about it's information about what they care about in our industry. We spend a lot of time both researching and cultivating fantastic content and creating a lot of original content in the form of white papers and a variety of other long form and short form and video content to give our prospects, our followers, and our customers the information that they want in the format that they want to receive it. So when we're talking about scheduling, we're talking about a combination of HR issues, law, trends when it comes to employee retention, how to engage younger and older employees. There's a lot of different angles that can be cultivated and leveraged in order to position yourself as an information source for these people. And that's where we leverage social media.
For sure, for sure. So it sounds like you're talking about thought leadership, right? You're talking about this. Yes, there are going to be benefits, right? But this less self-serving approach where it's like, what are we really trying to do for the industry at large versus, how many likes can we get and then how much fun can we have tracking how that trickles into dollars and cents. And so I love when people talk about it that way. Thought leadership obviously is something that is very close to my heart. And I'm glad that you laid it out there like that for our listeners. I've got a couple other things I want to get to with you. But before we do, just to leave our listeners with, what are 3 key pieces of B2B marketing advice that you would give with respect to this transition?
Forget everything you know. Forget everything you think you know. So that's the first thing. The second is too many marketers in a wide variety of industries talk about market segmentation, target markets, target accounts, account-based sales, account-based marketing. Do not forget that these are people first. They put on their pants in the morning. They listen to Howard Stern. They drop their kids off. They aren't just a combination of demo and psychographics that you're supposed to kind of psychologically manipulate into pulling into your lead generation vehicles. Remember that they're just people. And I think the third thing is that I try to follow this every day. I have a lot of experience. I've launched a lot of great companies. I've been through an IPO and 7 acquisitions. And the truth of it is that none of that actually matters, because every day is a different journey. And the information that you learn is always changing because the market is always changing. So what I kind of live by is I wake up every morning stupid and I try to go to bed smarter that night, just by paying attention to the market. I mean, bottom line is that, in my humblest opinion, effective marketers are translators for what the market is saying that they need. The difference is that the marketer knows it before they say they need it. So that's what's different.
I absolutely love it. I'm going to start using that. Just going to bed, waking up stupid. I was going to say going to bed dumb. That's not it.
Based on some of the people I've met, I think they wake up stupid, they go to bed stupid. So don't do that. Okay?
Y'all don't go to bed. Don't listen to me. Listen to Charles. So now, thank you so much for laying that out. Like I said, there's so much good stuff in there that yes, we talked about humanity and what you do, but we also did get to talk about these sort of larger industry objectives and how important it is to not just have your finger on the pulse of those for business reasons. But I think people are happier, whether we're salespeople or marketers. I think we're happier when we think of the folks that we sell or market to as humans. So it isn't just doing that because it's going to make us more successful, but it's just so much more fun and motivating to go into a conversation with person than with a persona. So now
don't get me wrong, personas are important, right? You have to know what moves the meter, but at the end of it, they're just people. They're just
right.
people.
Yeah, that stuff matters, but at the end of the day, like you said, you got to know that stuff and put it here. But then I'm gesturing towards the back of my head. Y'all can't see me. I keep forgetting that. You got to know that stuff and keep it in your back pocket. But you can't lead. You shouldn't, I would say, lead with that in conversation. So we've effectively established that point. We're talking to humans. Got it. So now that I have successfully picked your brain and seen what I could get out of it, Charles, I am interested in what you are putting in it. Talk to us about a learning resource that you have engaged with that is, informing your approach, that's just got you excited these days.
Well, so we're talking about a variety of things in this conversation. I really appreciate kind of the information that you're pulling out and then kind of repackaging and putting back out again. So it's appreciated. But we can talk here about the right target and revenue and pipeline revenue and conversion rates and all that wonderful stuff, but it won't matter unless I can build a team that is top performing and effective. So I've spent a lot of my career trying to become the best manager that I can. And there's a big difference between management and leadership. And I try to do both. So you'll find me reading a wide variety of sources, both online and offline, about how to engage and retain my team. It's not enough to manage. What you have to do, especially with marketers, because they're a combination of art and science. They're creative and they're data driven.
Yes.
And what they really need, what I have found with all the top performing teams that I've built, is that what they really want is to be inspired. Not necessarily by the people, not necessarily by the work or the customers or the amazing stock option price that you're trying to raise, but a combination of all of those things. They want to be emotionally connected to the outcome. And the more that I can get them to feel that, the information that I'm kind of gathering up is to make sure that that's what they do. So I end up spending a lot of time listening and then putting things into play that I feel will both motivate, engage, retain, and inspire my team.
Charles, you are a man after my own heart, and I'm instantly a fan. So there's that.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I suspect that our listeners are feeling the same way. So tell us, Charles, how can folks connect with you?
You can find me on Twitter at Charles J. Orlando is my username, my handle. You can find me on LinkedIn using Charles Orlando. So that's linkedin.com/in/Charles Orlando. Or you can go to the Humanity website, go to humanity.com. My email address, charles.orlando@humanity.com.
Thanks so much. Perfect. You guys go out, connect with this man so that you can go to bed smarter. Don't be waking up dumb and whatnot. I think I still messed it up. Anyway, thanks so much, Charles. We'll have to have you on again to talk about some of the other stuff that you're into, because I think that that's fascinating as well. But again, I really love the way you laid out a lot of these concepts for our listeners. I think it's going to be really valuable. Thank you so much.
Totally my pleasure. Thanks again for having me on.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.